Okay, this video is going to take us through the second piece of code on page 2 of our Chapter 5 notes. It's going to introduce a few more variables or terms for dealing with methods, and so here we go. We're going to go ahead and indicate the order in which these lines are executed. So this is going to be important that you pay attention to the landmarks on here that we're going to introduce that makes us know how to trace the code better. So obviously the first thing is the main method, which always starts the program. So so that's going to be the first place we go. Now remember, the main method, no matter where it is in the program, you could have methods above the main method and other methods below the main method. The main method is still the one that's where it starts. So its sequence of instructions starts here on line 8, and so this is going to be the second place the compiler goes to. It declares the scanner object. Number 3, it's going to ask the user for input. Alright, so the user types input, some input there, and then the compiler, of course, reads it, and then it stores it in the memory location called side. Now, the thing to remember, and this is, we got to remember this thing. This is where students are having a hard time remembering this, but it should be second nature by now. Is that this is going to reserve a storage location. I don't know what just happened just now, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so when you have a data type and a variable, double and side, it reserves a memory location. So this is what you can illustrate up here. So there's a memory location established or declared in the main method. It's named side, and what it does is it stores the user input. And let's just say that the user typed a 5, and so whoops, and so it types in a 5, and which side is a double, so it's going to store it as a 5.0. Alright, and then we go on to the next line, and we have another data type and variable. And so that, of course, is going to be another memory location established, and that's going to be cube vol. So this is another variable stored or reserved in the computer memory. Now, we do not have anything to assign to it yet, but we do go on to the other side here, and we see that we have something that should look familiar, and this is a method call. All right, you have parentheses, and you have a name in front of it. So the method name is volcalc, or volume calculation, and it's got parentheses after it. And so this is a method call, and so it's going to execute the volcalc method. Now, there's some other things going on here, and you notice that you have something. First of all, notice that this is not on a line by itself, and so it's a little bit different than our first one that we did today. So then what happens is we have what's called an argument and a variable call. So okay, I'm just having a hard time with this here. Okay, so this is the argument, and the variable call is going to be right here, side. So we already recognize side as being a variable call, because when you have the name of a variable, that means that the compiler is going to go and find the storage location whose name is side. So right here. And it's going to then return the return value is 5.0. So it returns the 5.0 to this memory location. So what's inside the parentheses really is 5.0. This is the value of that variable. Now inside the parentheses, we've already talked about, that's an argument. All right. Now we go on. So we've got line 4, or the fourth step, and then the fifth step. Now this again, this is calling the or implementing the volcalc method. So the logical thing to do is to find the method header who has the same name, and so this is where we go. Now in line 19, we already recognized this as being the method declaration and header. And so that's what this line is, of course, again. I think this is going to get in the way, so I'm going to put this down here. And so obviously the name is volcalc. It does have a return type, which I've lost that one. So, oh, no. Okay, so this has the return type. So what you want to do is do a thing where you can write return type and point to double. So what that means is this is the data type of the return value. Oh, here it is. Okay, so let's get this. I think I'm just going to put this over here. Will that fit? No, it doesn't do anything. This does not work. I need a better system. So let's take this and go like that. Okay, so that is the return type, or the data type of the return value. Now, looking at these lines of code here, you should be able to tell where the return value is going to come from, because it has the word return, and here we have a variable call here. So whatever the value of volume is what's going to be returned. What is the data type of the volume variable? And that is double. So that's why it matches. Double is the data type of the return value. So when you see this return type here, we want to compare that with the data type of the return value, and you'll see that it should be that. So if we go to here, the return value is on line 22 here, because it says return volume. So it's going to return the value of volume. Well, what is the data type of the variable volume? Well, you can see it's double. And so that's why we use double, because double is the return type of the return value. All right, so that's how that works. If you had an int up here, then that would be a problem, because it's returning a double, not an int, so that would cause issues. All right, so let's see. Let's erase that. And so now the next thing that we should have, before I forget, there was a place up here that I had the wrong thing, and so we need to check that out. So up here I had argument passed to the method header. It should say the argument and the variable call. So I don't know I can't remember if I said argument and variable call and just put the wrong text box up there or what. But anyways, this is an argument because it's in the parentheses of the method call, and it's a variable call because it's the name of a variable and it's calling for the value of side. And so I think I did mention that, but so I had put the wrong note up here. This is now the correct note. All right, now there's something else going on in here, and that is, let's see if I can get that over here. We have another situation where you have a data type and variable. So just like this one and this one, where memory locations were reserved, this double S is also going to reserve a memory location. And so that is going to be S. So I'm going to put it down here because this is declaring this variable within this method, the volcalc method. And some students might say, well, why don't we just, when we get down here, we multiply the volume, multiply the side value by each other 3 times to get the volume. Why don't we just use the value from the side variable? Why don't we just call that variable? And the reason is we can't. So as you're looking from this memory or this method, from this method you cannot see any variables that were declared in the main method up here. So you can't see from one block of code to another as far as variables that are declared. So since side was declared in the main method, we can't call it from a different method. So the way to get the 5.0 into this method so it can be used, we have to use a method call. And so what happens is that the argument is going to be passed from the method call to the method header. And so the argument is passed from the method call to the method header. And so the thing is that we need to understand too is that in light of all this is that this method or this variable here is called a parameter variable. So I'll get these up here. So it's called, that S is a parameter variable because it's declared within the method header. And the purpose of it is to catch the argument that's being passed from the method call. So if somebody is throwing a ball, typically they want somebody on the other end to catch it. So the method call throws 5.0 at the method header, and the method header creates a variable called S to catch the 5.0. And so then that 5.0 then gets stored in there. So in the S, so it's 5.0 that's now stored in here. Now this variable has been stored within the volcalc method, so it can be seen from within the body of it. So S is called and the return value is 5.0. So it's going to take 5.0 and multiply by 5.0 times 5.0, and it gets 125.0. Now this, on this line of code here, number 21, line 21, volume is declared. So double volume is another reserves memory location situation, and so this 125.0 is now going to be stored in that memory location. So just to update our numbers here, because I see I've kind of fallen off on that, we went from the method call, the line that has the method call, we went down to line 19. So that was the 6th step in the compiler's journey on here. And so after the method call, then we go into the body and execute line 7, or line 21. It's the 7th one. And then we go to line 8. So the volcalc method is a sequence of instructions, in fact a sequence of 2 instructions with the name volcalc. So it's just taking our definition from earlier. Okay, so now then it says return volume. Now this should be one of those lines of code that makes the most sense of any of them. We know that volume is the name of a variable, and when it's in this kind of a situation, it's actually a variable call. So it begs for a return value. Well, the volume, the value of volume is 125.0, so that's the return value of that variable call. And now, if you read the line with that value, this should make sense. It says return 125.0. Okay, so we are going to, and remember, at the end of a variable, at the end of a method, it returns the method call. So it's still going to return the method call, only this time it's going to take something with it. So the compiler is going to take the value 125 and return it to the method call. So it just says return 125. Okay, well, return it where? To the method call. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go from the end of the method back to the method call, and we're going to return the value 125.0. So that's the return value. And if you look on page 1 of your notes, remember we put the 8.0 above the method call for math.pow. We didn't see the code that caused that to happen, but in this case we actually see the code that causes it to happen. That's because we're writing our own code. Now, if you read this, it says cube vol is assigned 125.0. So that should make more sense now. Cube vol is assigned 125.0. So that gets stored in here. And so we go from, so line 22 is the 8th step, and then we go back to the method call, which is 9. So we're going to go back to line 14 is 9, and then after all of this happens that we just did and demonstrated in the computer memory, is now it goes to the last line of the method, main method, which is to print this. Now cubic inches, cube vol here is a variable call, so it'll actually print 125.0 cubic inches to finish the program, because this is the end of the main method. It's the end of the program. Alright, so that is how it goes. There's a lot of new terms in here, and so we'll just have to do our best to learn them as we go. And that is it.